One plate remained, and it told everything. Welcome to Marshshadowfiles. I am your host, Oliver Vane. Let me know where you're joining from. I value each of you. Let's uncover it. If there is one thing I've learned about a restaurant with a reputation, it's that the front room lies politely and the back rooms lie efficiently. Dace and Son on West 51st did both with class. I got there a little before noon, which is the sweet spot. Too late for breakfast confessions, too early for dinner excuses. The maitre d' recognized my name, which meant Miss Dace had done her part. He guided me past the polished dining room where white tablecloths sat like diplomats waiting to be bribed, and into an office that smelled faintly of coffee, paper, and decisions made under pressure. Vivian Dace was already there, without the linen bundle this time. She had a folder open and 3 neat stacks of paper arranged with the kind of precision that suggests a person who has learned to keep chaos in drawers. "Mr. Goodwin," she said, "I've prepared what you asked for." "Bless you," I said, taking the chair opposite her desk. "Names first. I like to know who I'm not trusting." She slid the first sheet across. "Professor Adrian Voss, as you know, then Eleanor Pike, trustee of the Foundation, her husband, Gerald Pike, Victor Lorne, the political consultant, Dr. Isabel Trent, curator at the Metropolitan, my cousin Leonard Dace, myself, and Thomas Rill, the Foundation's financial officer. 8, I said. A nice tight dinner. Nobody to hide behind. That was the intention. Whose? She hesitated just a fraction. Mine. I let that sit. And people who arrange tight dinners are either confident or desperate. Sometimes both. I scanned the list again. Anyone here with a reason to want Professor Voss uncomfortable? All of them, she said. Convenient. It's also true. His article didn't only damage my father. It cast doubt on acquisitions linked to the Foundation, embarrassed Dr. Trent publicly, and cost Mr. Lorne a client who disliked controversy. Mrs. Pike resents anything that disturbs order, and her husband resents whatever she resents. My cousin Leonard. She stopped. Yeah, I said. We'll get to Leonard. What about Rill? He manages money, she said. Quietly, efficiently, and he dislikes uncertainty. So Voss is a walking storm cloud to him? Yes. I nodded. Good. Now tell me about the table. She didn't smile, but there was something like approval in her eyes. To round, 8 places. I chose it deliberately. No hierarchy, no head. Everyone visible to everyone else. Where was Voss seated? She handed me another sheet, a diagram. Here. Between Dr. Trent and Mr. Lorne. I studied it. And the plate, this plate, was set there from the beginning? Yes. Who sets the table? Senior staff. The maitre d' supervises, but the actual placement is done by 2 trusted servers. Names? Paul Creamer and Elise Novak. I wrote them down. And the cabinet. Who could open it besides you? No one officially. Unofficially? She met my eyes. Leonard has a way of acquiring keys. Charming. He calls it efficiency. I call it burglary with better tailoring. That got the ghost of a smile again. She was rationing those, which made them worth noting. Let's talk about timing, I said. When would someone have swapped the plate? The table is set 2 hours before service. The room is then closed. Staff enter only under supervision. And the key to the cabinet? In my office. Locked. Yes. Anyone with access? Leonard. Myself. Occasionally Rill for financial documents. So 3 people can open the cabinet and 3 can open your office. That's tidy. It is not, she said. It is a weakness I fail to see. I shrugged. That's what I'm here for. Now, Professor Voss, tell me exactly what he did. She leaned back slightly, replaying it. He had just taken a bite of the second course, quail with preserved lemon. He paused, set down his fork, and looked at the plate. Not the food. The plate. Then he turned it over, saw the mark, and his expression changed. How? Recognition. Then anger. Then something else. Fear. Yes, that interested me. People get angry at insults. They get afraid when insults connect to something real. And then he asked who plated it and left. Yes. Did anyone stop him? No, it happened too quickly. Did he say anything else? Only one thing as he reached the door. He said, "This is a mistake." I tapped the pencil on my notebook. That matches the note. The wrong plate, wrong traitor. Yes, meaning he thought the message wasn't meant for him. Or he wanted us to think that. Sure, I said. Never underestimate a man who writes essays about other people's reputations. I flipped to the next sheet. Biographies. Clean, efficient summaries. Education, positions, affiliations, known disputes. Vivian Dace didn't do anything halfway. Your cousin Leonard, I said, scanning. This handles finances, known for aggressive restructuring. One minor investigation for tax irregularities, no charges filed. He is pragmatic, she said. I've met pragmatic. He usually smells like trouble wearing cologne. He smells like success, she said, a little too quickly. Same thing, different marketing. I made a note to pay Leonard a visit. What about Dr. Trent? I asked. She and Voss have a professional rivalry. He has criticized her acquisitions. She has called him reckless. So they exchange compliments in public journals. Yes. And Victor Lorne? He manages influence. Quietly, he arranges things. Such as meetings, agreements, outcomes. Ah, I said. The man who moves chairs before anyone notices the room has changed. That is accurate. I closed the folder. All right, I'll talk to your staff. I'll just then make the rounds. Anything else you haven't told me? She was silent for a moment. Then she said, the missing plate. Judgment, I said. Hard to forget. My grandfather used it rarely, she said. Only when he believed the table itself would deliver a verdict. He never explained it fully, but he said that once the plate was used, something would end. Comforting, I said. It was meant to be final. I stood. Let's hope whoever took it isn't planning a grand finale. As I reached the door, she said, Mr. Goodwin. I turned. If the plate of betrayal reached the wrong person, what happens when the plate of judgment reaches the right one? I considered that for a second. With Wolfe involved, I said. Usually, someone wishes it hadn't. That didn't reassure her, which wasn't my job anyway. Out in the corridor, I found the maître d', a smooth operator named Delacroix, who spoke English like it had been polished daily. Mr. Goodwin, he said. How may I assist? By telling me everything you know about plates, I said. He blinked once. Ah. Specifically, I went on, who set the table last Tuesday, who entered the room after it was set, and whether either of your trusted servers has developed a sudden interest in antique symbolism. He inclined his head. Of course. This way. As we walked toward the service area, I could feel the rhythm of the place, the quiet urgency, the controlled movement, the way everyone knew exactly where to stand and when to disappear. It was a good house. Someone had used it to send a message, and not a clumsy one, despite Wolfe's opinion. But the note, that was clumsy, or meant to look that way. Wrong plate, a wrong traitor. That meant there was a right one. And somewhere between the cabinet, the table, and 8 carefully chosen guests, someone had made a mistake. I intended to find out whether it was an accident, or the first move in a game Wolfe had already decided was worth winning. The service corridor had none of the charm the front room spent money on. It was narrow, efficient, and honest about what it was for, getting things done without ceremony. Delacroix led me through it with a kind of glide that suggests he could navigate it blindfolded and still avoid bumping into a soufflé. We stopped near a stainless steel prep table where a young man in a white jacket was arranging cutlery with surgical precision. "Paul Cremer," Delacroix said. "Mr. Goodwin wishes to speak with you." Cremer looked up. Mid-30s, neat, composed, was with the faintly strained calm of someone who knows the difference between routine and trouble and prefers the former. "Of course," he said. "What can I help you with?" "Last Tuesday night," I said. "Private dinner upstairs. You set the table." "Yes. Walk me through it." He didn't hesitate. That's always a good sign, or a practiced one. We prepared the room at 5. Table, linens, place settings. Plates from the standard service, 8 identical. I supervised Elise on the placements. We followed the seating chart provided by Miss Dace. No substitutions. No. No interruptions. He paused just long enough to notice. No. Unsupervised interruptions. I gave him a look. Define supervised. "Mr. Lorne entered once," he said. "Around 6. Said he wanted to check the lighting." "Did he?" "Yes. Briefly. As he didn't touch anything." "Did you watch him the whole time?" "I was present." "That's not what I asked." "A flicker." "No, I stepped out for perhaps 30 seconds to confirm the wine selection with the sommelier, and left Mr. Lorne alone in the room." "Yes. Convenient," I said. His jaw tightened. "I did not anticipate—" "Of course you didn't," I cut in. "That's why people anticipate for a living." Delacroix shifted slightly but didn't interfere. "Good man." "Elise Novak," I said. "Where is she?" "In the pantry," Cremer said. "I can call her." "Don't. I'll go to her." I left him there, thinking about 30 seconds. It's a short time unless you're holding something that doesn't belong where it is. The pantry was a step up in charm. Organized shelves, labeled containers. She and Elise Novak, standing by a counter, polishing glasses, with the kind of focus that could pass for innocence if you didn't look too hard. She was younger than Cremer, maybe late 20s, with sharp eyes and a quicker awareness of me than he had shown. "Mr. Goodwin," she said. "I was told you'd be asking questions." "Then you're ahead of me," I said. "Let's keep it that way. Last Tuesday, did anything about the table strike you as odd?" "No." "Nothing at all?" "No." "You're sure?" "Yes. Because your colleague just told me Mr. Lorne had 30 seconds alone in the room." That landed. Not a flinch, but a recalculation. "I was not aware of that," she said. "Now you are. Does it change your answer?" She hesitated. Not long, but long enough. "I noticed something after service began," she said. Go on." "One of the plates, Professor Voss's, had a slight imperfection near the rim. A chip. Very small." "Did you report it?" "No, it was minor and service had already started." "And before service?" "I didn't see it." "So either it appeared magically between 5 and 7, or you missed it." "Yes." "Which do you prefer?" She met my eyes. "I prefer the truth." "Then let's find it together," I said. "Who handles the plate service normally?" "Fritz, Mr. Brenner's equivalent here, is Chef Marceau, but the storage is under Miss Dace's authority." "Anyone else ever access the cabinet?" She hesitated again. "Mr. Dace." "Leonard." "Yes." "Frequently?" "Sometimes." "Alone?" "Yes." "Good," I said. "That gives me a man with keys and a habit." I left her with the glasses and found Delacroix waiting like a well-trained thought. "Mr. Lorne is still in the building," he said. "He has a standing lunch." "Perfect," I said. "I like people best when they think they're off duty." Victor Lorne was in a private corner of the dining room, halfway through a plate of something that had probably required negotiation to arrange. He was in his 40s, tailored within an inch of his life, with a face that had learned to agree before disagreeing. Mr. Goodwin, he said as I approached, to what do I owe the pleasure? Curiosity, I said, sliding into the chair opposite him without waiting for permission. It's a bad habit, but it pays. I've heard that about you. Then you've heard selectively. On last Tuesday, you checked the lighting in the private room. Yes. Why? I prefer to know the environment in which I'm expected to perform. You perform at dinner? Always. Did the lighting require adjustment? No. Then what did you do in those 30 seconds alone? He smiled, looked around. Admired the table? Yes. Touched anything? No. Not even a plate? No. Pity, I said. It would simplify things. He set down his fork. Mr. Goodwin, if you're implying, I'm implying nothing, I said. I'm collecting. There's a difference. Then collect this, he said. Professor Voss enjoys theatre. His exit was calculated. Calculated to what end? To disrupt, to assert control. By being offended? By making everyone else uncertain. That's a trick, I said. But it doesn't explain the note. What note? I watched him. No flicker this time. Either he was clean on that point or very good. The one that says the wrong plate reached the wrong traitor, I said. His expression didn't change. I haven't seen it. Then you're missing part of the script, I said. Which is awkward for a performer. He leaned back. If someone intended to send a message, Mr. Goodwin, it was not to me. Everyone says that, I said. Eventually, one of you will be telling the truth. I stood. Enjoy your lunch. As I walked out, I could feel his eyes on my back, measuring, adjusting. He was a man who liked to know where he stood. Right now, he didn't. That made two of us. Outside, the March air had sharpened just enough to wake up a man who'd been breathing kitchen heat. I checked my notes. Kremer's 30 seconds. Cyrilis's chip, Leonard's access, Lorne's denial. 4 pieces. Not enough for a picture, but enough for a pattern if you knew how to look. I headed for Leonard Dace next. If there was a man in this arrangement who treated locks as suggestions, I wanted to meet him before he had time to rearrange anything else. And somewhere in the back of my mind, Wolfe's voice was already asking the question I hadn't answered yet. If the wrong plate reached the wrong traitor, who at that table was meant to be judged? Leonard Dace kept his office 3 blocks away, which told me something before I even met him. Men who handle family money either stay close to the source or far enough to deny responsibility. Leonard had chosen a compromise, close enough to interfere, far enough to pretend he didn't. The building was glass and chrome, to the kind that makes you feel underdressed even when you aren't. His name was on a frosted panel beside a discreet door, Dace Financial Consulting. No mention of the restaurant. That was another note. His secretary was efficient, polite, and already expecting me. That meant Vivian had called ahead, or Leonard had been warned. Either way, the game had moved a step. Leonard Dace stood when I entered. He was in his early 40s, well-cut suit, careful hair, and the kind of smile that had practiced sincerity in a mirror. Mr. Goodwin, he said. I've heard of you. I get around, I said, usually in the right direction. He gestured to a chair. Please, Vivian said you might come by. Did she say why? She said there was an issue with the dinner, and a plate. Your family has interesting tableware, I said, sitting. He chuckled lightly. We've been accused of worse. I'm sure you have, I said. Let's talk about keys. That slowed him just a fraction. Not much, but enough. What about them? He said. You have access to the cabinet in the restaurant basement. Yes. And to Vivian's office. Yes. And you use both. When necessary. Last Tuesday, I said. Was it necessary? He leaned back. Are you suggesting I tampered with a dinner setting? I'm suggesting you had the opportunity. I'm asking if you used it. No. Not even briefly? No. Not even to check something, adjust something, admire something? No, Mr. Goodwin. I did not go near the cabinet or the table. Where were you between 5 and 7 that evening? In meetings, he said. Here. My secretary can confirm. I'll take her word for it, I said. For now. He smiled again, a shade thinner. You seem to be circling something. Perhaps you could be more direct. Sure, I said. The plate served to Professor Voss was marked with a symbol your grandfather used for betrayal. His eyes didn't widen, but they sharpened. I see. Do you? Yes, I remember the system. Do you remember what judgment meant? That got him. Not a lot, but enough. His fingers tapped once on the arm of the chair. It was theatrical, he said. My grandfather had a flair for drama. Answer the question. He looked at me, measuring. It meant finality, a decision that could not be reversed. On what basis? On whatever basis he chose, Leonard said. He wasn't accountable to anyone. Except his own sense of theater, I said. So if someone took that plate now, what would it mean? It would mean someone is playing with old symbols they don't fully understand. Or understands them very well, I said. He shrugged. Either way, it's childish. Is it? I said. Because Professor Voss didn't think so. Leonard's mouth tightened. Voss is a provocateur. He thrives on attention. Then why did he look afraid? That landed. Leonard didn't answer immediately. I wasn't watching him closely, he said finally. But you saw him? Yes. And his reaction? Surprised. Offended. Not afraid? No. Funny, I said. That's not how it's been described to me. He leaned forward slightly. Mr. Goodwin, if you're trying to build a case around a piece of porcelain, you may be overestimating its importance. Wolfe doesn't overestimate, I said. He calibrates. And what has he calibrated so far? That someone with access to your family's private history used it to send a message at a table where everyone had a reason to listen. And you think that someone is me? I think you're on the list, I said, along with everyone else. He relaxed back again, the smile returning. Good. I'd hate to feel singled out. I wouldn't worry, I said. That comes later. I stood. One more thing. After the dinner, a note was left in Vivian's desk. The wrong plate reached the wrong traitor. This time the reaction was real, not dramatic, but clean. Surprise, then calculation. I wasn't aware of that, he said. I believe you, I said. He blinked. You do? Yes, because if you had written it, you'd have made it better. He smiled, despite himself. Thank you, I think. Don't thank me yet, I said. It just means whoever wrote it isn't as polished as you are, or wants us to think that. I left him there, still smiling but thinking harder than he wanted to show. Back on the street, I checked my watch. Early afternoon. Enough time to fit in one more stop before reporting back to Wolfe. Professor Adrian Voss lived in a building that had once been respectable and was now trying to remember how. The lobby smelled faintly of old books and newer neglect. The elevator creaked like it had opinions. Voss answered the door himself. Up close, he looked exactly like his reputation, a man who had spent years sharpening his mind and neglecting everything else. His beard was more argument than style, and his eyes had the restless focus of someone who is always rewriting what he sees. Mr. Goodwin, he said, though I wondered how long it would take. Not long, I said. You left at dinner dramatically. That's an invitation. He stepped aside. Come in. The apartment was crowded with books, papers, and the kind of organized disorder that only its owner can navigate. He gestured to a chair and remained standing. You saw the plate, I said. Yes. You recognized the symbol. Yes. Betrayal. Yes. Who did you think it was meant for? He smiled faintly. Not me. That's not what your face said. My face is not always reliable, he said. Your instincts are, I said. What did they say? He hesitated. Not out of fear, out of calculation. They said, he began slowly, that someone at that table knows more about the Dace collection than they have admitted, and that they were being warned. Warned of what? That their past is not as buried as they believe. Whose past? I said. He looked at me, and for the first time there was something like genuine unease there. That, he said, is what I intend to find out before they find me. I leaned back. You're assuming you're not the target. I'm certain of it. Why? Because, he said quietly, if the plate had been meant for me, it wouldn't have been labeled betrayal. That sat there between us, heavy and unpleasant. What would it have been labeled? I asked. He met my eyes. Judgment. I let that sit for a moment, not because I didn't understand it, but because I wanted to see what he'd do with the silence. People who live by words tend to fill gaps. Voss didn't. He stood there, watching me. It was as if he had already said too much and was waiting to see if I would notice. I'll pass that along, I said finally. To Mr. Wolfe, he said. Yes. Tell him, Voss added, that whoever arranged that plate knows the code well enough to be dangerous, but not well enough to be precise. That's a narrow line, I said. It's the only kind that matters. I got up. You've been helpful. I doubt that, he said. But I've been honest. That's rarer. On the way out, I paused at the door. Professor, if you're not the traitor, who is? He didn't answer right away. Then he said, at that table? Possibly all of them, but only one of them knows it. I left him with his books and his unease and took the elevator down, which creaked in agreement with my thoughts. By the time I reached the street, I had enough pieces to take back to Wolfe, but not enough to assemble without him. That's the division of labor. I collect the puzzle. He tells me which pieces matter. The brownstone was as it should be when I got back, quiet, composed, and faintly disapproving of the outside world. I went straight to the office. Wolfe was in his chair, eyes half closed, fingers resting on the arms as if they had been placed there by a careful hand. The menu card was still on his desk, exactly where I had left it. Well, he said. I gave it to him clean and straight. Names, positions, motives, the table arrangement, Kremer's 30 seconds, Elise's chipped plate, Lorne's visit, Leonard's access, and Voss's reaction, including the part about judgment. Wolfe listened without interruption, which is his way of saving up his objections. When I finished, he opened his eyes fully. Archie, what is the most significant fact you have reported? That depends, I said, on whether you prefer opportunity, motive, or theatrics. I prefer clarity. Then it's the note, I said. The wrong plate reached the wrong traitor. Pfui, he said. The note is vulgar. It is meant to be noticed. Therefore, it is of secondary importance. Then the plate. Yes, specifically. The error, he said. The plate was incorrect. That is intolerable. I sat down. You're offended on behalf of porcelain. I am offended on behalf of intention, he snapped. If one employs a system, one must employ it correctly. Otherwise, one reveals ignorance. Or creates confusion on purpose, I said. He waved that aside. Confusion is a byproduct, not a goal. Now, who had the capacity to select the correct plate? Anyone who knew the code and had access, I said. Vivian, Leonard, possibly Voss. Maybe one or two others. Of these, Wolfe said, who would benefit from sending such a message? Depends on the message, I said. If it's a warning, then someone who wants to intimidate. If it's a mistake, then someone who wants to correct it. If it's both, then someone who enjoys puzzles. Wolfe grunted. Do not indulge in cleverness. It weakens the mind. I'll keep it in small doses, I said. What about the missing plate? Judgment. Yes, Wolfe said. That is more interesting. Because it hasn't been used yet. Or because it has, he said, and we have not perceived it. I looked at him. You think the judgment has already been delivered? I think, he said, that we are dealing with someone who believes himself entitled to deliver it. Self-appointed justice, I said. Always a crowd pleaser. Indeed, Wolfe said, particularly among the mediocre. He reached for the menu card, turned it over, and studied the handwriting again. Archie, he said, what do you make of Professor Voss? Sharp, careful, and not as fearless as he pretends, I said. He recognized the symbol and reacted fast. Too fast for a man who thinks he's not the target. Yes. He also thinks the person behind it knows the code well enough to be dangerous, but not precise enough to get it right. An interesting distinction, Wolfe said. Which suggests what? That the perpetrator is familiar with the system but not intimate with it, Wolfe said. Enough to use it, insufficient to master it. Leonard, I said. Possibly, Wolfe said, but too obvious. Vivian? No. You're sure? Yes. Why? Because she came to me, he said. A guilty party would not invite analysis unless compelled. People do foolish things under pressure, I said. Miss Dace is not foolish, Wolfe said. She is controlled. Her control slipped only when discussing her father. That is not the behavior of our culprit. Then who? Wolfe closed his eyes again. We do not yet know. That's comforting, I said. However, he continued, we do know that Mr. Lorne had access to the room, that Mr. Dace had access to the cabinet, and that Professor Voss had knowledge of the code. And Dr. Trent? She had motive, Wolfe said, but no apparent opportunity. Real? Money, Wolfe said. Always a factor, but insufficient alone. I leaned back. So we have a table full of people with reasons to dislike each other, and at least 3 with the means to play games with plates. Correct. And 1 missing plate labeled Judgment. Yes. And a note saying the wrong plate was used. Yes. And Professor Voss saying if it had been meant for him, it would have been Judgment. Yes. I looked at him. So someone intended to accuse someone else of something worse than betrayal. Wolfe opened his eyes. Precisely. Such as? He didn't answer immediately. Then he said, that is what we must determine. The doorbell rang. We both turned our heads slightly. Fritz's footsteps moved through the hall, dignified and unhurried. A moment later, footsteps returned, lighter, quicker. Saul Panzer came in without knocking. He rarely bothers when Wolfe has already decided he's needed. Mr. Hunt Wolfe, he said. You called. Yes, Wolfe said. You will undertake discreet inquiries regarding the individuals named by Mr. Goodwin. Saul nodded. What am I looking for? Discrepancies, Wolfe said. In their histories, their finances, and their associations, particularly anything that might constitute judgment. Saul's eyes flicked to me, then back to Wolfe. Understood. As he turned to go, Wolfe added, and Mr. Panzer, exercise caution. If our adversary is what I suspect, he may already be observing us. Saul gave a small nod. Then I'll make it worth his time. He left as quietly as he had come. I looked at Wolfe. You're expecting a move. I am anticipating one, he said. There is a difference. Not much, I said. There is, he said. One implies readiness. The other demands it. I glanced at the menu card again. The neat, careful handwriting spelling out a mistake that didn't feel accidental anymore. Wrong plate. Wrong traitor. Which meant somewhere out there, someone knew exactly who deserved the right one. And if Wolfe was right, and he usually is, that someone wasn't finished yet. If Wolfe was anticipating a move, I've learned not to waste time waiting for it to arrive gift-wrapped. Anticipation, in that house, usually meant I got sent out again. I didn't have to ask. "Archie," Wolfe said, "return to the restaurant this evening." "For dinner," I said hopefully. "For observation," he snapped. "Miss Dace will arrange for you to be present without interfering. I want to know if any of our suspects revisit the scene." "Criminals returning to admire their work," I said. "That's more your style than mine." "Your style," he said, "is irrelevant." "Good," I said. "Oh, I was getting tired of it anyway." I called Vivian from the hall. She didn't waste time on greetings. "Yes, Mr. Goodwin?" "Wolfe wants me in the room tonight," I said. "Quietly. No announcements, no speeches." "I understand," she said. "We have a smaller dinner scheduled. I can arrange for you to observe from the side. Anyone interesting attending?" "A few regulars. No one from last Tuesday." "That's a shame," I said. "I was hoping for a reunion." "There may be one," she said. "Unplanned." That got my attention. "Meaning?" "Professor Voss called an hour ago. He requested a table." "Alone?" "Yes. Did you give it to him?" "I did." "Then we may get our reunion after all," I said. When I hung up, I went back to the office. "Voss is coming back tonight," I told Wolfe. "Of course he is," Wolfe said. "Just because he's curious?" "Because he is afraid," Wolfe said. "And fear seeks proximity to its source." "Comforting thought," I said. "Not for him," Wolfe said. By 6:30, I was back at Dace & Son, dressed well enough to pass inspection, but not well enough to attract comment. Delacroix greeted me with a nod that said he knew I wasn't there for the menu. He placed me at a small side table with a clear view of the main room and a partial angle on the private dining corridor. Good positioning. I ordered something respectable and ignored it. At 7, Professor Voss arrived. He didn't look like a man seeking comfort. He looked like a man trying to confirm a theory and hoping it would fail. His eyes moved too quickly, checking details, measuring distances. He took his seat without ceremony. At 7:10, Victor Lorne walked in. That wasn't on the menu. He spotted Voss almost immediately and adjusted his path with the kind of smoothness that only looks accidental. "Professor," Lorne said, stopping at the table. "I didn't expect to see you here again so soon." Voss looked up, expression neutral but tight at the edges. "Mr. Lorne, nor are you." "Business rarely respects expectation," Lorne said. "May I?" He gestured to the empty chair. Voss hesitated, then nodded. Briefly. I leaned back slightly, angling my ear without making a show of it. "You left rather abruptly the other night," Lorne said. "I had reason," Voss replied. "Indeed," Lorne said. "And now you return." "I prefer to verify my impressions," Voss said. "And have you?" "Not yet." Lorne smiled faintly. "Perhaps you're looking in the wrong place." Voss's gaze sharpened. "Am I?" "Yes," Lorne said. Messages of that kind are rarely about the setting. They're about the audience." "Then you believe the plate was meant for someone else," Voss said. "I believe," Lorne said, "that whoever arranged it wanted all of us to notice." "That is obvious," Voss said. "Is it?" Lorne said. "Or are you assuming that because you noticed first?" There it was. A small push. Testing. Voss didn't answer immediately. Then he said, "What do you know, Mr. Lorne?" "Only what I observed," Lorne said, "and what I inferred." "Which is?" "That the person behind it is less interested in accusation than in reaction." "Reaction to what?" "To uncertainty," Lorne said. "It destabilizes. It forces people to reveal themselves." Voss leaned forward slightly. "And what have you revealed, Mr. Lorne?" Lorne's smile didn't change. "Very little, I hope." That was as far as it went before a server approached, and the conversation shifted to safer ground. But it had done its work. They were both circling something, neither willing to step into the center. I checked the room. No Leonard yet. No Dr. Trent. No Rill. Just Voss and Lorne, playing chess without admitting it. At 7:30, the third piece arrived. Leonard Dace. He came in with the confidence of a man who expects to be recognized, and the caution of one who knows recognition can be dangerous. His eyes swept the room, found Voss and Lorne, and paused just long enough to mark the situation. Then he walked over. "Professor, Victor," he said, "this is becoming a habit." "An unfortunate one," Voss said. "Or an interesting one," Leonard replied, taking the third chair without asking. I shifted slightly, not making sure I could hear. "To what do we owe this gathering?" Leonard asked. "Coincidence," Lorne said. "I don't believe in coincidence," Leonard said. "Then you must be very tired," Voss said. Leonard ignored that. "We're all here because of the same thing." "The dinner," Lorne said. "The plate," Voss corrected. Leonard nodded. "Yes, the plate." He looked from one to the other. "Tell me, have either of you figured out who it was meant for?" Silence. Then Voss said, "Not yet." "And you, Victor?" Lorne shrugged lightly. "I have theories." "Share them," Leonard said. "Not yet," Lorne replied. "I prefer to test them first." Leonard smiled. "Caution. Sensible." "And you?" Voss said. "Do you have a theory, Mr. Dace?" Leonard leaned back. "Of course. But unlike Victor, I'm willing to share." That got both their attention. "Oh, I think," Leonard said, "that the plate was meant exactly for who received it." Voss's eyes narrowed. "You believe I'm the traitor?" "I believe," Leonard said smoothly, "that you have been called one." "By whom?" "That," Leonard said, "is the interesting question." "And you have no idea," Voss said. "Oh, I have ideas," Leonard said. "But I'm more interested in yours." Voss stared at him. "If I were the target, the symbol would have been different." "Would it?" Leonard said. "Symbols can be interpreted." "Not that one," Voss said. Leonard's smile thinned. "You seem very certain." "I am," Voss said. "Then perhaps," Leonard said softly, "you know more about the code than you've admitted." That landed harder than anything else so far. Voss didn't answer. For the first time, he looked genuinely unsettled. I sat back, letting it play out. 3 men, 3 angles, 1 missing piece. And somewhere behind it all, a plate labeled Judgment that hadn't yet been placed or had. And we hadn't seen it. At 8 o'clock, my phone buzzed once in my pocket. A signal, not a call. Saul. I excused myself, stepped into the corridor, and checked the message. Rill, large undisclosed transfer 3 weeks ago. Source unclear. Recipient. Foundation-linked account. More coming. I stared at it for a second, then slipped the phone away. Money. Quiet, efficient, and suddenly not so quiet. I went back into the dining room. At the table, the conversation had shifted again, but the tension hadn't. If anything, it had tightened. Now I knew something they didn't, which meant the next move wasn't just coming. It had already started. I didn't go back to my table right away. But when Saul sends a message like that, you don't rush. You adjust. Money changes things. It always does. A symbol on a plate might bruise a reputation, but money moves decisions, and decisions make enemies worth worrying about. I stayed in the corridor just long enough to call him. "Yeah," Saul said when he picked up. No greeting. He doesn't waste syllables. "Tell me," I said. "Rill," he said. "Foundation financial officer. Clean on paper, too clean. 3 weeks ago, a transfer, large enough to matter, moved through an intermediary account. Amount. 7 figures. I let out a low whistle. That qualifies as interest. Source is masked, Saul went on. but the recipient is tied to a shell connected to a private acquisition group. Art? I said. Likely, Saul said. Or documents. Something collectible. Something like Malcolm Dace's old collection, I said. Could be, Saul said. Timing fits. Transfer happens. Then a week later, Voss gets served a plate calling him a traitor. Or someone else, I said. Yeah, Saul said. Depends who was supposed to get it. Keep digging, I said, especially anything linking Rill to the others. Already on it, Saul said. You want eyes on anyone tonight? I thought about the 3 men at the table. Stay light, I said. If someone's watching, I don't want them seeing you watching. Saul gave a soft grunt. Then they won't. I hung up and went back into the dining room. The triangle was still intact. Voss, Lorne, Leonard. But the tone had shifted. Less probing, more guarded. They had all realized, at least on some level, that they were not just discussing a curiosity. No, they were inside it. I took my seat again and watched. Leonard was talking now, smooth and controlled. Misunderstanding, he was saying. Symbols are open to interpretation, especially when removed from their original context. Convenient, Voss said. Practical, Leonard corrected. And profitable, Lorne added lightly. Leonard's eyes flicked to him. Only if one is unimaginative. Lorne smiled. I try not to be. Voss leaned back, studying both of them. You're both avoiding something. Of course we are, Leonard said. So are you. I'm not, Voss said. Then tell us, Leonard said. Why did you leave? Voss didn't answer immediately. Then he said, because I recognized the intention. Which was? Lorne asked. To provoke, Voss said. To force a reaction. And you reacted, Leonard said. Yes, Voss said. Because not reacting would have been worse. How? Lorne said. Because silence can be interpreted as acceptance, Voss said. Acceptance of being called a traitor, Leonard said. Yes. Lorne tilted his head. And you are not. No, Voss said. Leonard smiled faintly. Then you should have stayed and denied it. Voss's eyes hardened. I do not perform on command. No, Leonard said. You perform when it suits you. That was closer to the bone than the others. Voss didn't like it. I let my gaze drift, scanning the room again. Still no sign of Dr. Trent or Rill. That didn't mean much yet, but it would. A server approached their table, delivering a course. The interruption gave me a moment to think. Rill moves money. Quietly. A large transfer tied to a Foundation-linked account. That connects to at least 2 people at that table. Pike, to Trent, and indirectly to the others. If something in Malcolm Dace's collection had been sold, quietly, off record, that would be enough to trigger both motive and message. Betrayal. Or judgment. I was still turning that over when the 4th piece finally arrived. Thomas Rill. He came in without ceremony, which was his style. Efficient, unobtrusive, the kind of man who prefers to be unnoticed but is always where he needs to be. Mid-50s, conservative suit, expression neutral to the point of invisibility. He saw the table, adjusted course, and joined them without invitation. Gentlemen, he said. Mr. Rill, Leonard said. We're becoming predictable. Efficiency often appears that way, Rill said, taking the last open seat. Voss watched him closely. You weren't invited. I rarely am, Rill said. And I attend when necessary. And tonight is necessary? Lorne asked. Yes. Why? Voss said. Rill looked at each of them in turn. Then he said, because the situation is deteriorating. That quieted the table. In what way? Leonard asked. In every way, Rill said. The dinner created uncertainty. Uncertainty creates risk. Risk affects the Foundation. And you're here to manage that, Lorne said. Yes. How? Voss said. By clarifying, Rill said. Clarify then, Voss said. Rill folded his hands. The plate was not meant for you? Voss's jaw tightened. You're certain? Yes. Then for whom? Leonard asked. Rill didn't answer immediately. Then he said, That depends on what was being judged. There it was again. Not betrayal now. Judgment. You're avoiding, Lorne said. I'm being precise, Rill said. Then be more so, Leonard said. Rill looked at him. Very well. The plate of betrayal was used incorrectly. The intended message was not delivered. We know that, Voss said. Do you? Rill said. Yes. Then you also know, Rill continued, that the correct plate has not yet been used. Silence. I felt it before I saw it. The shift. Not just tension, but direction. This wasn't speculation anymore. It was expectation. And when it is, Lorne said. Rill's voice didn't change. Then the matter will be resolved. How? Voss asked. Finally, Rill said. Leonard leaned forward slightly. You speak as if you know who is responsible. I do, Rill said. 3 pairs of eyes fixed on him. And? Lorne said. Rill held the moment just long enough to make it count. And I believe, he said, that they are in this room. That did it. It's not a dramatic reaction. No one stood, no one raised a voice. But the air changed. Everyone at that table understood the implication. So did I. Somewhere between the cabinet, the table, the money, and the message, the game had narrowed. 5 people had been at that dinner. Now 4 of them were sitting in one place, circling each other, and the one who had moved the first piece had just told them he was still playing. I checked the room again, slower this time. Because if Rill was right, and I was starting to think he might be, then the next move wasn't just coming, it was about to happen in front of all of us. If Rill expected applause, he didn't get it. What he got was 4 men sitting very still, each one recalculating in his own way. Leonard broke it first. That's a serious claim, he said lightly. Yes, you're suggesting one of us staged this? I'm stating it, Rill said. On what basis? Lorne asked. Evidence, Rill said. Conveniently vague, Voss muttered. Rill ignored him. The transfer I authorized 3 weeks ago. That snapped all 3 of them into focus. Authorized? Leonard said. Yes. You just said it was masked, Lorne said. It was, Rill replied, to prevent premature scrutiny. From whom? Voss asked. From everyone, Rill said. That includes us, Leonard said. Yes. That's an interesting definition of trust, Lorne said. It's an accurate one, Rill said. I shifted in my seat, watching closely now. This wasn't a bluff anymore. Rill had stepped into the center of it. What was transferred? Leonard asked. Funds to secure an acquisition, Rill said. What acquisition? Voss demanded. Rill looked at him. Some material related to the Dace collection. That landed harder than anything yet. Leonard's smile vanished completely. Explain. Several items from Malcolm Dace's archive were offered privately, Rill said. Documents whose provenance had been disputed. By Professor Voss? Leonard said. Yes. And you purchased them, Lorne said. I arranged for their acquisition, Rill corrected. Without informing the family, Leonard said. Yes. That's not just aggressive, Leonard said. That's reckless. It was necessary, Rill said. If those documents had surfaced publicly under questionable ownership, the Foundation and the Dace name would have suffered further damage. So you hid them, Voss said. I secured them, Rill said. With 7 figures of whose money? Lorne asked. Foundation funds, Rill said. None that you control? Leonard said. Yes. And you thought no one would notice, Voss said. I thought, Rill said, that the outcome would justify the method. I could almost hear Wolfe snort from across town. Leonard leaned back, studying him. And you think this, he gestured vaguely, meaning the plate, the note, the tension, is connected to that. I know it is, Rill said. How? Voss asked. Because only a limited number of people knew those documents were available, Rill said. Fewer knew they had been acquired, and fewer still would understand the significance of using that particular symbol to signal betrayal. Voss's eyes narrowed. You're suggesting the message was about the documents? Yes. And the traitor, Lorne said, is the one who sold them. Or the one who enabled the sale, Rill said. Leonard's gaze sharpened. Meaning? Meaning, Rill said evenly, that one of you facilitated access to those materials. Silence again, but heavier this time. Voss spoke first. I examined that collection years ago. I did not sell it. No, Rill said. You exposed it. I reported irregularities, Voss snapped. You created opportunity, Rill said. Lorne held up a hand slightly. Let's not confuse cause and effect. Exposure is not sale. No, Rill said, but it weakens defenses. Leonard leaned forward. And you think one of us exploited that? I think one of you knew the materials would surface, Rill said, and arranged to benefit. That's a strong accusation, Lorne said. It is a necessary one, Rill said. Voss let out a short, humorless breath. And your solution is to play games with plates? No, Rill said. That was not my method. Then whose was it? Leonard said. Rill's gaze moved from one face to another. As I said, I believe they are in this room. That was when the door to the dining room opened again. I felt it before I saw it, the shift in attention, the way heads turned just slightly. Not enough to draw notice, but enough to register something new. Dr. Isabel Trent walked in. She didn't hurry. She didn't hesitate. She moved like someone who had already decided what she would do before she arrived. Her eyes found the table almost immediately. 5 of them now, the full set, minus Vivian and the Pikes. She approached without waiting to be invited and took the last available position, standing rather than sitting. I see I'm not the only one who prefers clarity, she said. Dr. Trent, Lorne said smoothly. We were just discussing. I know what you were discussing, she said. I've been informed. By whom? Leonard asked. By someone who understands the stakes, she said. Her gaze flicked briefly across each of them, then settled on Rill. You've made your move, she said. I've made a statement, Rill replied. And a dangerous one, she said. Truth often is, he said. Not always, she said. Sometimes it's simply inconvenient. Voss watched her closely. Do you have something to add? Yes, she said. I know who arranged the plate. That did it. No one spoke for a second. Then Leonard said quietly, You're certain? Yes. Then tell us, Lorne said. She shook her head. Not here. Why not? Voss said. Because this isn't where it ends, she said. This is where it began. Rill's expression didn't change, but his focus sharpened. Except where then? She looked at all of them. At the brownstone, she said. That landed like a verdict. Nero Wolfe's house. I felt a slow grin start somewhere I couldn't quite control. Of course, if there was going to be judgment, it wouldn't be delivered in a restaurant. It would be delivered in a room where no one could leave until the truth had been served. Dr. Trent turned and walked out without waiting for agreement. For a moment, none of them moved. Then Leonard stood. Well, he said softly, that's an invitation. Or a trap, Voss said. Both, Lorne said. Rill rose last. It doesn't matter, he said. We'll attend. I didn't wait for more. I was already on my feet, heading for the door. Because if Wolfe was about to host dinner of a different kind, Then I wanted to be there when the plate of judgment was finally placed. And when this time, I had a feeling it would reach exactly the right person. I reached the brownstone 10 minutes ahead of the first guest, which gave me just enough time to confirm that Wolfe had already arranged the battlefield. That's the only word for it. When Wolfe decides to gather people, he doesn't host, he positions. The office was in full order. Chairs placed with deliberate spacing, the lighting adjusted to that exact level where faces are clear, but not comfortable, and Wolfe installed behind his desk like a general who doesn't need to move to win. Fritz passed through once, silent as a blessing, leaving a tray on the side table. Coffee. No food. That told me everything. This wasn't a social occasion. Wolfe glanced at me as I entered. Report. I gave it to him in compressed form. The dinner, the confrontation, Rill's revelation about the funds, Trent's arrival, and her invitation. When I finished, Wolfe nodded once. Good. That's it, I said. No lecture on human folly? Later, he said. For now, we will observe. Observe what? Behavior under pressure, he said. It is remarkably consistent. The bell rang. I went to the door. Dr. Trent stood there, composed, precise, as if she had stepped out of a decision rather than made one. Mr. Goodwin, she said. Doctor, I said. Welcome to the arena. She didn't smile. I assume Mr. Wolfe is prepared. He was born that way, I said, and led her in. Wolfe inclined his head a fraction. Dr. Trent, be seated. She chose a chair with a clear view of the door. Smart. The bell rang again. This time it was Voss. He came in with less hesitation than before, but not much more comfort. Mr. Wolfe, he said. Professor, Wolfe replied. Voss took his seat without prompting, eyes already moving, measuring distances, exits, people. He was a man who understood he was in a room designed for answers he might not like. Leonard arrived next, smooth as ever, though the edges were tighter now. Mr. Wolfe, he said, I've heard much about you. Most of it inaccurate, Wolfe said. Sit. Lorne followed, carrying his composure like a well-fitted coat. An interesting gathering, he said. Not yet, Wolfe said. It will be. Finally, Rill. He entered without flourish, closed the door behind him, and took the last chair as if completing a pattern. 5 of them, the same 5 from the dinner, minus Vivian, plus Wolfe. And me, which makes 6, but I don't count. I circulate. Wolfe let the silence settle. He's good at that. Silence, in his office, isn't empty. It's loaded. Then he spoke. You have all been summoned, he said, because a message was delivered incorrectly. No one interrupted. A plate, Wolfe continued, bearing a symbol of betrayal was served to Professor Voss. It was not intended for him. Voss said nothing, but his jaw tightened. The error, Wolfe said, was not trivial. It was revealing. Leonard shifted slightly. In what way? In that it exposed both the intention and the limitation of the perpetrator, Wolfe said. Meaning? Lorne asked. Meaning, Wolfe said, that the individual responsible possesses knowledge of the Dace family's private system, but not sufficient understanding to employ it with precision. Rill's eyes flicked briefly toward Trent, then back to Wolfe. Wolfe saw it. Of course he did. You have each, Wolfe said, to your connection to the Dace collection, to the Foundation, and to the events surrounding both. He looked at Voss. Professor, you exposed weaknesses. At Leonard, you exploited opportunities. At Lorne, you manipulated outcomes. At Rill, you concealed transactions. At Trent, you curated reputations. No one moved. That, Wolfe said, is the surface. And beneath it, Trent asked. Beneath it, Wolfe said, is a single act of betrayal significant enough to warrant judgment. There it was. The word landed like a weight. And you know what that act is, Voss said. Yes. And who committed it? Leonard added. Yes. Then say it, Rill said. Wolfe ignored him. Before I do, he said, we must correct an error. He turned slightly toward me. Archie. I knew what he wanted before he finished saying it. Then I crossed to the side table and picked up the object Fritz had left covered. Not a tray, a plate. I brought it to Wolfe's desk and set it down carefully. Every eye in the room moved to it. Wolfe gestured. Examine it. No one moved at first. Then Trent stood, stepped forward and turned the plate over. She froze. Leonard leaned in next. Then Lorne. Then Voss. Rill stayed where he was, but his gaze sharpened. What is it? Voss said. Trent's voice was steady, but tight. The symbol. Which one? Leonard asked. She looked up. Judgment. The room tightened another degree. Wolfe nodded. Yes. Where did you get it? Lorne asked. It was delivered, Wolfe said. To this house 1 hour ago. That was new. By whom? Rill said. Wolfe's eyes moved across them. By the individual responsible for the earlier error, he said. Silence. Why? Voss asked. To correct it, Wolfe said. Leonard let out a slow breath. So now the right plate has arrived. Yes. And will be used, Lorne said. Yes. Rill leaned forward slightly. On whom? Wolfe placed his hands on the arms of his chair. That, he said, is the purpose of this gathering. No one spoke. Wolfe's gaze settled, precise and final. The plate of judgment, he said, was intended for a person at the original dinner who committed a betrayal not of reputation, but of trust, specifically the covert sale of disputed materials from the Dace collection, using Foundation funds for personal advantage. All eyes moved, almost involuntarily, to Rill. He didn't flinch. That is incorrect, Rill said. Is it? Wolfe said. Yes. Then you will explain, Wolfe said, why you arranged the transfer through a concealed intermediary, directed it to a shell acquisition group, and failed to disclose it to either the Dace family or the full Foundation board. Rill's voice remained even. To protect the collection. From whom? Wolfe asked. From exposure, Rill said. By Professor Voss, Wolfe said. Yes. And you believed, Wolfe said, that concealing the transaction justified the method. Yes, Wolfe nodded. You are mistaken. Rill's eyes hardened. I disagree. Of course you do, Wolfe said, because you are not the individual for whom the plate was intended. That broke it. Voss leaned forward. Then who is? Wolfe turned his head slightly. Dr. Trent, he said. If anyone in that room had expected a dramatic reaction, they didn't get it. Dr. Isabel Trent didn't gasp, didn't protest, didn't even shift her stance. She remained exactly where she was, one hand resting lightly on the edge of Wolfe's desk, the other at her side, as composed as a portrait that had learned to breathe. That, more than anything, told me Wolfe had landed where he intended. Leonard was the first to break. That's absurd, he said too quickly. Dr. Trent has no control over... Silence, Wolfe said. It wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. Leonard stopped. Wolfe's eyes remained on Trent. You will respond. She inclined her head slightly. Of course. Her voice was calm, measured, almost academic. I assume, she said, that you intend to connect me to the transfer Mr. Rill described. I do not intend, Wolfe said. I have already done so. Then I am curious to hear how, she said. Wolfe gestured faintly toward the plate. Archie. I moved to the desk, picked up the plate, and turned it so the underside faced the room. The symbol of judgment caught the light, clean, deliberate, unmistakable. Wolfe said, This plate was delivered here 1 hour ago. It was accompanied by a note, which I will summarize. Correction. Trent's eyes flicked to the plate, then back to Wolfe. No change. You assume, she said, that I sent it. No, Wolfe said. I know who sent it. Then why name me? She asked. Because, Wolfe said, you are the only individual present who benefits from both the original error and its correction. That is a conclusion, she said, not proof. Wolfe inclined his head. Very well. We will proceed. He turned slightly, addressing the room. Mr. Rill arranged the acquisition of disputed materials from the Dace collection using concealed funds. That is established. However, he did not originate the opportunity. He responded to it. Rill's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. The opportunity, Wolfe continued, arose because those materials were made available through a private channel known to a limited number of individuals, those with prior access to the collection. Voss spoke. Including myself. Yes, Wolfe said. And Dr. Trent. Trent's expression remained unchanged. I have professional familiarity with many collections. Indeed, Wolfe said, including this one. You examined it after Professor Voss's article, did you not? Yes. And you identified items of questionable provenance? Yes. And you reported them? I did. To whom? To the Foundation. And privately? Wolfe asked. A pause. Very slight. I discussed them with colleagues, she said. Which colleagues? Wolfe asked. She met his gaze. That is not relevant. It is essential, Wolfe said, because one of those colleagues was connected to the intermediary through which the materials were offered for sale. Silence. Leonard shifted. You're saying she leaked the information? I'm stating it, Wolfe said. That's speculation, Trent said. No, Wolfe said. It is deduction. Based on what? She asked. On your behavior, Wolfe said. Your knowledge, your access, and your reaction. My reaction, she said. Yes, Wolfe said. At the restaurant. You did not express surprise at the use of the symbol. You expressed concern about its location. Trent's eyes narrowed slightly. That is an interpretation. It is an observation, Wolfe said. You knew the system well enough to recognize that the plate was incorrect, not merely inappropriate. That does not implicate me, she said. It does when combined with your subsequent actions, Wolfe said. You arranged this gathering. You directed all parties here. You ensured that the corrected plate would be present. I did no such thing, she said. No, Wolfe said. Then why did you come here? She didn't answer immediately. Because, Wolfe said, you understood that the error had exposed you. That was the first crack. Not in her composure. She still stood straight, still controlled. But in the timing. The pause was longer now, deliberate but unavoidable. You're assuming, she said finally, that I had something to hide. I'm stating it, Wolfe said again. What exactly? She asked. Wolfe's voice didn't rise, and it didn't need to. You identified items in the Dace collection whose provenance was questionable. Instead of reporting all of them, you selectively disclosed information, enough to damage Malcolm Dace's reputation, but not enough to eliminate the value of the materials. Voss inhaled sharply. You created uncertainty, Wolfe continued. Uncertainty lowered their perceived legitimacy while preserving their desirability to private collectors. That is, Trent began. Precisely what occurred, Wolfe said. You then arranged for those materials to be offered discreetly through an intermediary connected to your professional network. Rill's eyes shifted to her. Now there was something there. Recognition. You anticipated, Wolfe said, that an individual such as Mr. Rill would acquire them, believing he was protecting the Foundation. And in reality, he was legitimizing your manipulation. Trent's composure held, but only just. That is an elaborate theory, she said. It is a complete one, Wolfe said. And the plate? Lorne asked quietly. Wolfe turned his head slightly. The plate of betrayal, he said, was intended for Dr. Trent. It signified her role in undermining the Dace collection for personal and professional advantage. Trent's gaze snapped to him. That is false. Is it? Wolfe said. Yes. Then explain, Wolfe said, why you attempted to correct the error. I did not, she said. No, Wolfe said. Then who delivered the plate of judgment to this house? Silence. Wolfe let it stretch. Then he said, you did not deliver it personally. That would have been imprudent, but you arranged for its delivery, believing that by redirecting the accusation toward another, you could regain control of the narrative. That is, she started again, but stopped. Because now everyone was looking at her. Not with curiosity, with recognition. Leonard spoke quietly. Is it true? She didn't answer him. Voss said, you knew. Rill said nothing, but his eyes had changed. Lorne leaned back, watching. Trent drew a breath. When she spoke again, the control was still there, but it was different now. Not defensive. Precise. You've constructed a compelling argument, she said to Wolfe. But you're missing one thing. Wolfe's eyes narrowed slightly. No. Yes, she said. You're assuming motive. I have stated it, Wolfe said. And you're wrong, she said. That was new. Wolfe didn't interrupt. Trent looked at the plate again, then back at him. I did identify those items, she said. I did recognize their potential value. And yes, I ensured they would surface where they could be acquired. Then you admit, Leonard began. She cut him off. I admit to preserving them. That shifted it again. Preserving, Voss said. Yes, she said. From destruction. Wolfe's gaze sharpened. Malcolm Dace's collection, Trent said, contained items that were not merely questionable. They were dangerous. Documents that, if fully exposed, would have implicated individuals far beyond this room. Silence. I did not leak them for profit, she said. I redirected them to ensure they would be contained. By selling them, Rill said. By placing them, she said, where they could be controlled. And the plate? Wolfe asked. Her eyes met his. That, she said, was not my doing. Wolfe didn't move. Then whose was it? He asked. Trent held his gaze. That, she said quietly, is the part you haven't solved yet. If Wolfe had been expecting that, he didn't show it. Then again, he rarely shows anything until he's ready to charge for it. The room held still, but it wasn't the same stillness as before. Before, it had been pressure. Now, it was alignment, pieces sliding closer to where they belonged, even if no one liked the picture. You are correct, Dr. Trent, Wolfe said at last. I have not yet stated the identity of the individual who arranged the plate. That's because you can't, she said. Wolfe's eyes half closed. On the contrary. No one spoke. He turned his head slightly. Mr. Goodwin. Yes, sir. Kindly retrieve the envelope from the third drawer of my desk. I did. Wolfe doesn't keep surprises unless he intends to use them. The envelope was plain, high unmarked, just like the one Vivian had described earlier. Open it, Wolfe said. Inside was a single card. Not the dinner menu, a duplicate, but this one had something added. A small mark in the corner, pencil, nearly invisible unless you were looking for it. I handed it to Wolfe. He didn't take it. Show it to them. I did. Voss leaned forward first. His eyes caught the mark, and for the first time since I'd met him, he looked genuinely startled. That's... He stopped. Yes, Wolfe said. You recognize it? Voss nodded slowly. Not part of the original code. No, Wolfe said. An addition. Leonard frowned. What is it? Wolfe answered. A correction mark, used informally by Malcolm Dace in his later years when he amended his own system. Trent's head turned sharply. That's not documented. No, Wolfe said. It would not be. Rill spoke quietly, meaning only someone very close to the collection would know it. Precisely, Wolfe said. Silence. Then Leonard said, that still doesn't narrow it enough. It narrows it sufficiently, Wolfe said. He turned his gaze, not to Trent this time, but to Professor Voss. Professor, Wolfe said, you stated earlier that if the plate had been meant for you, it would have borne the symbol of judgment. Yes, Voss said. You were certain. I was. Because, Wolfe said, you are intimately familiar with the system, more so than you admitted. Voss didn't answer. Wolfe continued. You spent months studying Malcolm Dace's collection. You not only analyzed it, you interpreted it. You understood its inconsistencies, its revisions, and its private notations. That was my work, Voss said carefully. So, yes, Wolfe said, and it gave you knowledge unavailable to the others. Leonard shifted. You're not suggesting. I'm stating, Wolfe said, that Professor Voss is the individual who arranged the plate. That broke the room. Leonard half rose. That's ridiculous. Lorne didn't move, but his eyes sharpened. Rill leaned forward, intent. Trent went completely still. Voss did not react immediately. Then he said, very quietly, no. Yes, Wolfe said. You're wrong, Voss said. No, Wolfe said. Explain, Lorne said. Wolfe inclined his head. Gladly. He gestured toward the plate. The error, the use of betrayal instead of judgment, was not ignorance. It was misdirection. Voss's eyes narrowed. That makes no sense. It does, Wolfe said, if the intention was not merely to accuse, but to provoke a specific reaction. From whom? Leonard asked. From everyone, Wolfe said, but particularly from Dr. Trent. Trent's gaze flicked toward Voss. Wolfe continued. Professor Voss suspected that Dr. Trent had manipulated the Dace collection, selectively disclosing information to create opportunity. However, he lacked proof. That is not, Trent began. Wolfe silenced her with a glance. He therefore devised a method to force revelation. By placing the symbol of betrayal before her, he created a situation in which the guilty party would react, not outwardly, but strategically. Voss said nothing. The error, Wolfe said, was deliberate. It allowed him to observe who sought to correct it. And she did, Leonard said slowly. Yes, Wolfe said. Dr. Trent arranged this gathering. She ensured the presence of the correct plate. She attempted to redirect the accusation. Trent's voice was tight now. Because the situation required clarification. Because you were exposed, Wolfe said. He turned back to Voss. You then ensured that the corrected plate would reach me, Wolfe said, knowing that I would complete the process. Voss's jaw clenched. You're constructing a narrative. I'm describing your actions, Wolfe said. You have no proof, Voss said. Wolfe's eyes opened fully. On the contrary, he said. I have your reaction. Silence. You were the only individual, Wolfe continued, who recognized both the error and its implication immediately. You left the table not in confusion, but in certainty. I left because, Voss started. Because you knew the message was yours, Wolfe said, not as the traitor, but as the accuser. That landed, and Voss didn't deny it this time. You arranged the plate, Wolfe said. You placed it yourself during Mr. Lorne's brief absence from the room? Lorne's head turned sharply. You're saying, yes, Wolfe said. Mr. Lorne provided the opportunity, unwittingly. Lorne's expression tightened, but he said nothing. You then allowed the error to stand, Wolfe said. Because it served your purpose, it destabilized the table, it forced interaction, and it led, inevitably, to this moment. Voss exhaled slowly. When he spoke again, the denial was gone. I needed to know, he said. No one interrupted. "I suspected her," he said, glancing at Trent, "but suspicion is not enough. Not in my field. Not after what happened with Malcolm Dace." "You wanted proof," Wolfe said. "Yes." "So you staged a trial," Wolfe said. "Ah, yes." "And now you have your answer," Wolfe said. Voss looked at Trent. "Yes," he said quietly. Trent met his gaze. "And you," Wolfe said to her, "have confirmed your actions, though you dispute their motive." "I preserved the collection," she said. "You manipulated it," Wolfe said. "Yes," she said, "to prevent greater damage." "That," Wolfe said, "is a matter for those affected to judge." He leaned back. "The plate of judgment," he said, "has now been correctly applied." No one spoke. Finally, Leonard said, "What happens now?" Wolfe's eyes moved to him. "That," he said, "depends on what you value." "Meaning?" Leonard asked. "Exposure," Wolfe said, "or containment." Rill spoke. "If this becomes public, it will damage everyone," Lorne said. Voss nodded. "And validate my original concerns." Trent said nothing. Wolfe folded his hands. "And you may choose to resolve this privately. The materials may be secured, the transactions disclosed internally, and the matter concluded without further scandal." "And if we don't?" Leonard asked. Wolfe's voice was calm. "Then it will proceed otherwise." That was all he needed to say. The room held the weight of it. Finally, Trent spoke. "I will disclose everything," she said, "to the Foundation. Fully." Rill nodded slowly. "Then I will do the same." Leonard exhaled. "That may be the least damaging path." Lorne smiled faintly. "Pragmatism prevails." Voss leaned back. "Truth, for once." Wolfe closed his eyes. "Archie," he said. "Yes, sir." "Escort them out." "I did." One by one, they left the brownstone, quieter than they had arrived, each carrying their version of judgment with them. When I got back to the office, Wolfe hadn't moved. "Well?" I said. He opened one eye. "It is done?" "Yeah," I said. "All over a plate." "No," Wolfe said, "over what it represented." "Which is?" He looked at the empty space on his desk where the plate had been. "Appetite," he said. "Not for food, but for advantage. It is rarely satisfied and never without cost." I nodded. "Fritz is making dinner." "Good," Wolfe said. "At least one appetite can be addressed properly." I headed for the kitchen. Behind me, the brownstone settled back into itself. Quiet, ordered, and once again exactly as Wolfe preferred it. And if a plate had told the entire story, it was only because someone had known how to listen. By the time Fritz announced dinner, the house had already returned to its proper state, meaning everything that had been disturbed was pretending it hadn't been. And that's one of the things I've come to respect about the brownstone. It doesn't forget, but it doesn't dwell either. It lets Wolfe do that for both of them. I joined him in the dining room. Fritz had outdone himself, not extravagantly, but precisely. A dish arranged the way a conclusion should be, balanced, deliberate, and leaving no loose ends. Wolfe sat, adjusted his napkin with the solemnity of a ritual, and took the first bite before speaking. That, in his system, counts as approval. "Well," I said. He chewed, swallowed, and finally said, "Adequate." From Wolfe, that's applause. I poured the wine. "So that's it. Everyone confesses, agrees to keep things quiet, and we all go home smarter and slightly more expensive?" Wolfe shot me a glance. "Do not be flippant, Archie. No one confessed. They acknowledged necessity." "Same difference," I said. "Only with better vocabulary." He ignored that. "The essential point," he said, "is that each participant recognized the cost of continued conflict exceeded the benefit." "Translation," I said. "They all had something to lose." "Precisely." I leaned back. Still, it's a neat piece of work. Voss sets the stage, Trent plays the long game, Rill moves the money, and everyone else pretends they're just passing the salt. Wolfe lifted his glass. A vulgar metaphor. Fits, though. He didn't argue. I took a bite and let it settle. You knew it was Voss pretty early, didn't you? Yes. When? When you reported his reaction, Wolfe said. Certainty without confirmation is rarely innocent. Meaning he knew more than he should. Yes. I meant he behaved as a man who had initiated a process, not merely encountered one. Still, I said, you let it play out. Of course, Wolfe said. To intervene prematurely would have deprived us of essential information, such as Trent admitting her part. Yes. And Rill stepping into the open. Yes. And Leonard showing just how much he didn't know. Wolfe allowed himself a small nod. Ignorance, when exposed, is often more instructive than knowledge. I grinned. You should put that on a plate. He glared at me. Archie. Sorry. We ate in silence for a moment. Not the heavy kind, the kind that comes after something has been settled properly. Then I said, you ever think about how close that came to going wrong? It did not, Wolfe said. Sure it did, I said. If Trent hadn't tried to correct the mistake, and if Voss had stayed quiet, if Rill hadn't pushed, any one of those, and we'd still be guessing. No, Wolfe said calmly. We would have proceeded differently. Which is your way of saying you'd have figured it out anyway. Yes, I nodded. Confidence is a wonderful thing. It is a requirement, Wolfe said. I poured more wine. What about the plates? What about them? They go back in the cabinet. Yes, locked, of course. And the system. Wolfe paused, then said, it should be destroyed. That surprised me. You're against theatrical dining now. I'm against systems that invite misuse, Wolfe said. Symbols, once detached from their context, become tools for the unscrupulous. Like tonight, like always, Wolfe said. I thought about that. Still, I said, it worked out. He looked at me. Worked out? He said. His family's legacy was compromised, a collection manipulated, funds concealed, and reputations risked, all because individuals chose advantage over integrity. Yeah, I said. But nobody got killed. Wolfe snorted. Your standards are deplorably low. Occupational hazard, I said. He leaned back slightly, regarding me. Archie, he said, the absence of violence does not equate to the presence of justice. Then what does? He didn't answer immediately. He took another bite, considered it, and then said, clarity. I let that sit. Everyone knows now, he continued, what was done, by whom and why. That knowledge imposes consequence, whether public or private. Even if they keep it quiet, I said. Especially then, Wolfe said. Secrecy does not eliminate truth, it concentrates it. I raised my glass, to concentrated truth. He ignored that, but his eyes flicked to the wine, which is as close as he comes to participation in my nonsense. We finished dinner without further philosophy, which is another of Wolfe's habits. He prefers his conclusions clean, not cluttered. Back in the office, he resumed his chair, settled into it like a man returning to a throne he never really left, and closed his eyes. I sat at my desk, flipped open my notebook, and looked at the first line I'd written that morning. A plate. I added the last line beneath it. That told the entire story. Archie, Wolfe said without opening his eyes. Yes, sir. You will ensure that Miss Dace understands the necessity of securing her grandfather's collection appropriately. I'll tell her to lock the cabinet and lose the code, I said. Do not be impertinent, Wolfe said. Convey the principle, not the jest. Got it. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, and Archie, yeah, Remind her that a table is not merely for display. I grinned. It's for judgment. His eyes opened just enough to fix me. No, he said. It is for discernment. Judgment is what follows when that fails. I nodded. Right. He closed his eyes again. The brown stone settled. Outside, the city kept doing what it does, moving, arguing, eating, forgetting. Inside, things were back where they belonged. Wolfe in his chair, me at my desk, and somewhere in a locked cabinet, a set of plates that had done more than serve dinner. They had told the truth, which, in our line of work, is about as much as you can ask from anything.